should be live right now. Yeah, perfect. Let me just... There we go. Perfect. Now we're live. Welcome everyone to Cooking Marag Geeg with Khazzam, me. So I'm just going to be waiting a couple minutes for some people to arrive, and then we'll get started. It's going to be a great time cooking with everyone, and I hope that everyone's going to have some fun, and we'll hopefully learn something and finish off with a great lunch to start our Sunday. Yeah, I'm excited. It's great to be doing this for a second time. Hopefully some people will be able to see it and have fun. And yeah, thank you for joining me this early on a Sunday. Yeah. I'm just going to wait maybe a couple more seconds for a few more people to arrive, and then we'll get started. So, Marag Geeg. A chicken soup, the answer to all of our joys and heartbreaks. So, Marag Geeg is traditionally something that we make every Friday. If you've ever had Friday night Shabbat dinner with us, then you know all about Marag Geeg. It's this delicious chicken soup. So, Marag Geeg literally means marag means sauce, and Geeg means chicken, so sauce with chicken. And that's Marag Geeg is Arabic. So this recipe comes from my grandmother, who's Iraqi, and on my dad's side, and they all spoke Arabic. So I have her cookbook right over here. This is my grandmother's cookbook, and we're going to be following her recipe today for the meal. Her recipe with a few slight variations. So the variations are because everyone likes to make this soup and make it their own way, and it really depends on how you like to flavor your soup. So I'm just gonna get us started off. So as I said in the comments below, oh, you know what? I'm gonna put all the rest of the ingredients for this on the comments just so that everyone can see them. So let's add these ingredients. There we go. Perfect. So we're going to start off with, I said to everyone, if you're going to follow along this recipe with me, to salt your chicken beforehand. So these are my chicken drumsticks. We really like to use drumsticks for this recipe. I find it gives it a really nice flavor. So these are salted drumsticks. So to make this, usually you get drumsticks with the skin on them. So here I have a few drumsticks with skin, and we like to remove the skin. I find that the skin adds a certain type of texture that I don't necessarily enjoy, and adds a few more like levels of fat that we sometimes don't want in our soup. So the way that we're going to be taking the skin off, the chicken legs, is you can take a paper towel. So this is just a normal paper towel. You're going to fold it in half. Then you're going to take your chicken leg, and you're going to be taking off the skin. Just take it off a little bit, like that. And then with the you're going to hold the chicken leg, and then with the paper towel, you're going to hold onto the skin. And then that gives you a bit of extra grip. So here I have the skin in one hand, the meat in the other, and I'm going to pull it off. And there we go. Now we have our chicken leg without the skin and our paper towel that has the skin on it. So that's a really simple way to remove your skin, and that just changes the texture, but you don't need to remove the skin. It's really a personal preference. So I'm going to be doing another one. Again, paper towel in one hand with the skin, the chicken in another hand, and you pull apart. And there we go. We have our skin, there, and our chicken leg. So I'm going to go wash my hands because it's always good to wash your hands after dealing with raw meat. I'll be right back. cooking with washed hands. So I'm going to be doing the main cooking right now with my hands washed. So we have our salted chicken legs. I put around like this much salt. It's a little bit less than a quarter cup, maybe like 2 tablespoons. And it's coarse salt, and you kind of mix it around in there. And my grandmother would always do this. She said it was to take off the blood from the chicken. I think that's a pretty Jewish thing, to remove and make it a bit more kosher. But honestly, I don't really know. I just do it because it adds a bit of flavor to the chicken, and we're always aiming towards more flavor rather than less flavor. So I'm going to give this a little rinse just to get all of the salt off. I'll be right back. So I'm just rinsing it with cold water just to get all that salt off. I'm kind of massaging the chicken legs a little bit and taking off all the salted water. And then of course, I'm going to wash my hands again. So we have the rinsed chicken, and now I'm going to wash my hands. Perfect. So we have our chicken here that has now been salted and rinsed. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to saute an onion, celery if you have it. I don't have celery with me right now, but if you do, it adds a really nice touch, a really subtle flavor, and garlic. So here's our onion. I'm actually working on a farm right now, and this is one of the onions from our farm. How cool is that? So I'm going to show you guys a little technique about how I cut onions so that we get a nice chopped onion and it all stays together. So the first thing that I'm going to do with the onion is I'm going to cut off right here. So a cut right here, just to cut the end off. But I'm going to keep this end on. So we're going to cut here, and then we're going to cut it in half. So cut like that, and then cut it in half. So now we have 2 onion halves that look like this, with the top off. Ooh, there we go. The top off and the roots still on. So I'm going to take off the skin. So just a few layers of skin on top. And now it should look like this. So we have the top off, the roots on, and the skin off. Ooh, there we go. So next what we're going to do with the onion is it's going to be laying flat like this on the cutting board. And I'm going to be cutting lines like this. So maybe we want it chopped, so I'm probably going to cut 4 lines, and then I'm going to cut 1 line through the middle. So when you cut the 1 line through the middle, be careful not to like hurt your fingers, and yeah, take care whenever you're using knives. So now I'm going to have my knife. I'm going to try to angle this down so you guys can see what I'm doing. Ooh, that way. So we have our onion. I'm going to do my chops down the middle. So this is what it looks like. And then we're going to cut it right here. Be careful. There we go. So now we have cuts and a cut in the middle. And then the next thing that we're going to do is chop it like this. And then we're going to get pretty even sizes of onion. And then you just throw out your little root bit. So now we have these nice, even, chopped onion bits. And that honestly didn't take very long, and I didn't have to do all that fancy little cutting technique that a lot of chefs do, but is a little bit hard once you do it for the first time. So I'm going to just repeat it with the other side. And that's great. You can use that. I'm using that for chopped right now, but if you want to use it for diced, you just add more cuts. And yeah, it works. It's very, very effective. So sometimes people ask me when cutting onions, like, why do our onions make us cry? So it's actually really interesting. First of all, you try not to get too emotionally attached. But onions make you cry because when you cut them, a gas is released. And that gas interacts with our eyes, and it creates sulfuric acid. And sulfuric acid is definitely not something that we want in our body. So our body reacts defensively with tears to try to expel all of that sulfuric acid. Different people have different techniques to try to not cry when you cut onions. My sister loves to put on swimming goggles, and that prevents her from crying. I'm pretty lucky, and I actually have contact lenses on, and for some reason when you cut onions with contact lenses on, I haven't cried. So I haven't cried in years. Another way is just cut more onions. The more onions you cut, the less you're going to cry in the future. So here are my chopped onions. We're also going to be using garlic. So I have some garlic in here, maybe like 2 cloves. It depends on how much garlic you like. So with garlic, I kind of cheat and I have a nice garlic press. These are so useful. You kind of just take off the skin of your garlic, you put the garlic in there and you squeeze and it becomes minced. It's a bit cheating, but... So we're going to take our garlic, we're going to cut off the end bit here, not the bit with the little tail thing. So you're going to cut that off, and then with the flat end of your knife, we're going to just push down. And then that gets us a squished garlic clove, and it's very simple to just remove the skin. So there, just easily remove the skin. The inside of the garlic, if you cut your garlic open, sometimes you find like this like tube in the middle. Some people find that hard to digest, so if you ever find garlic hard to digest, remove that center bit and you might find it easier. So let's do it with the other piece of garlic. Squish, remove the skin, remove the center, and we're going to put it all into the garlic press. We're going to give it a light squeeze for now, because we're not going to saute our garlic yet. So we're going to give it a nice squeeze, and I'm going to turn now to my stovetop. I have a cast iron, but you can use really any saute pan you wish. I'm going to turn it onto like medium high and drizzle a little bit of olive oil in there, just so that we can saute our garlic and our onions. It's always important to, when you start sauteing, to first saute your onions, and then when they're almost at the point where you want them to be at, then add your garlic. Because they saute at different times. So if you put them both in at the same time, you're gonna get you're gonna get either burnt garlic and alright onions, or raw onions and alright garlic. So it's good to start with the onions and then put in your garlic. So I'm going to wait for the pan to heat up a minute. And yeah, if you guys are using celery, you can put in the celery at the same time as your onions, and then the garlic afterwards. So, garlic, onions. It just adds so much great flavor to every single dish. So let me just test it. A good way that you could test, just add 1 little cube of onion and pop it in the olive oil. It's not bubbling just yet, so I'm going to turn up the heat a bit and wait a couple more seconds. But in the meantime, we can talk about spices. So there are a lot of spices in this recipe, but some people don't need to put all these spices. My grandmother, she only used pepper and cardamom, and her sister only used pepper. So it really depends on what you have at home and how you would like to flavor your meal. So we like to use all 4 spices. We have pepper, turmeric, curry, and cardamom. So for the cardamom, cardamom can come pre-ground, but we like to grind it ourselves, because then if you have pre-ground cardamom, usually it can taste kind of soapy, and that's not really we don't really like soapy food. So cardamom comes in these little pods. Ooh, I can hear the onion. I'm going to put my onions in, and then I'll get back to the pods of cardamom. So there's the onion. Whenever you push something off of a cutting board, this is my knife, this is the sharp end, this is the dull end. Always use the dull end, the back of the knife, not the sharp. because if you use the sharp to scrape something off, you're going to dull your knife, and that's not very good. So we have our onions in here. Just going to saute them for a little bit before we add our garlic. Back to the spices. So the cardamom pod. So this is a cardamom pod, and then you can squish it. Usually people squish it with like a mallet, just something to squish all those pods. But when you do, I can squish it with my hands. It's not very difficult. When you do squish it, whoo, there we go. There's all these seeds inside. There we go. That's a cardamom seed. It smells really good. So we put them in a little grinder, like this one, and you just grind them until you get a powder, like this. So that's about a teaspoon of cardamom. So we're going to use a teaspoon of cardamom, a teaspoon of curry. I'm going to add my teaspoon to the cardamom. So a teaspoon of curry, which is a spice. A teaspoon of turmeric. Ooh, this one's hard to open. There we go. Which is going to add a nice yellow coloring, which we really enjoy. And then I'm going to add some freshly ground pepper. I'm not really going to measure it. I'm just going to add it as I see fit. This is a very large pepper shaker. I know. It's kind of ridiculous. There we go. I think that's enough pepper. I'm going to give my onions a stir. They're looking good. They're sizzling great. Well, I put a little bit of olive oil in with those, with that. So we have now our little spice mixture. It's orange from the turmeric. It smells amazing. You got that spicy from the pepper, and you have that aromatics from the cardamom. So now we have our spices. We have our garlic. We have our onions. We're also going to be, for this sauce, we're going to be needing tomatoes. So I use canned tomatoes. When you have a recipe like this, you don't really want to use fresh tomatoes, because fresh tomatoes can be used for so many other like great recipes that need fresh tomatoes, like if you want to make a salad or anything else. But canned tomatoes are just fine when you're making a soup. So I'm just opening this can of tomatoes. You can also use passata, which is like a type of crushed tomato, and that works perfectly fine as well. So I'm just opening this can. I'm not very familiar with this can opener, so sometimes it's going to take me a minute, but that's okay. There we go. There we go. There's our canned tomatoes. So we're going to just stir our onions a bit more. I'm going to add my garlic now, because the onions are sauteed enough. I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil and to just saute the garlic. Ooh, that sizzle. Alright, so we got our garlic in here, we got our onions. Next we're going to add our spices. I hope you can hear me over the sizzle. So I like to gently fry my spices, because I find that gives them a really, really nice aroma. So we have in our saute pan our onions, our garlic. I'm adding the spices. You should also have your celery in here if you're using celery. So we're adding the spices now. We're going to give them a nice little fry. Maybe add a little bit of olive oil directly into your spices. Ooh, I can smell it already. Oh, this is going to be great. So mixing all that together. Ooh. So we have our spices in there, and we're going to be adding about half of the can of tomatoes. So I'm here, I'm adding about half of my pan. It's a lot of smoke. It's okay. I'm going to turn on my fan just so that the smoke goes away. And I'm going to try to talk a little bit louder so that everyone can hear me. So here we're creating a nice sauce. And it looks really colorful and beautiful. I'm going to try to bring it closer to the camera so you can see it. One sec. So this is what our sauce looks like around now. Okay, so you can see the tomatoes, you can see the onions, you can smell the spices definitely. So I'm going to put this back on and just let it simmer for a little bit. Perfect. So the next thing that we're going to do is blanch our chicken. So I'm going to bring this a bit closer to the stove so you can see it a little bit better. Does that work? Kind of. So now we're taking our chicken right over here. So we have our, let me move this so you can see a bit more. We have our sauce going right here, and I'm going to turn on the stove on this end, and we're going to be putting in our chicken. So you don't really need to have any fat in your large pot where you're going to be blanching your chicken. Just heat it up for a bit, and then add your chicken. So when blanching the chicken, we're just turning it from that pink to white. It doesn't have to be golden or anything. We just want to make it a little bit more white just to seal in that moisture. So our sauce is going nice and steady. I'm going to turn it down just so that we give it have time for our chicken to blanch before our sauce burns, because that wouldn't be very good. So we have our chicken here. I'm just going to stir it once in a while just to make sure all areas of the chicken are going to be white. So in this recipe, I'm using chicken legs. And chicken legs are dark meat. So why do we have dark meat versus white meat? So it all depends on the type of muscles that the chicken uses. So in a chicken's leg, it uses their legs to walk around a bit. I know this very well because, as I said, I'm working on a farm and we have lots of chickens, and I'm the one that takes care of all the chickens. So I get to see these chickens run around. They're very silly. So the legs are used for longer duration than the wings, so the breast. Legs have a slower contraction muscles, and those muscles are fueled by fat compared to carbohydrate like the wings are. So the fat, those muscles need more oxygen, and we get oxygen from red myoglobin. So that's whenever you have like a chicken leg and you see that red bit, that's myoglobin. It's not actually blood. So the myoglobin, the more that we have slow contraction muscles, the redder the meat will be. So the chicken legs have a lot of slow contraction muscles. They also have fast contraction muscles, but they have more slow, and that's what makes the meat browner. I just really like the flavor of brown meat, which is why I use chicken legs. So I'm just going to give the chicken a stir. Some of them are starting to get white. I'm going to use a pincer just to, I'll pick one up at some point to show you what the blanched meat is supposed to look like. Yeah. So now we have almost everything in our recipe. We have our onion, we have our spices, we have our garlic, we have our celery, not in this case, but usually you'd have your celery. We have our chicken over here. We have half of the can of tomatoes. We're going to be adding the other half to the chicken once it's all blanched. So let's grab a chicken leg so I can show you what a blanched chicken leg looks like. So I'm going to be grabbing my pincers. Let's get, okay. So, here you can see that it's pink, but if I flip it over, it's slippery. Oh my goodness, hold on. It's flying all over the place. There we go. Here you can see that it's white. So you got the white and then the pink. So you want it all to be this white color. And it doesn't take very, very long. This is just a preliminary cooking, and we're gonna let it cook as a soup for longer. And that's what's gonna make the chicken cooked all the way down to the bone. So let's continue to give this a nice stir. All in all, this recipe is fairly quick. If you have all your ingredients prepped, if you have your spices ground, it doesn't take very long. And you finish off with a really delightful dish. If anyone has ever come, as I said, to our house on a Friday night, you've probably had this. A really, really dear friend of ours calls it KCF, Khazzam Comfort Food. And that's a really good name for it. A lot of people eat chicken soup and it's like a cure for a common cold. That's mainly because the warm liquid goes down and it makes your mucus more liquid. Not something that you want to hear about cooking, but whatever. I'm a scientist, this is what we think about all the time, and it's gonna help exit your respiratory tract faster. But a lot of chicken soup that you buy in store, not like the one that we're making right now, is going to be quite salty. And the saltier your soup is, the more dehydrated you'll be. And that's kind of counterproductive. So it's really great to make these things by hand. You really know what's going in there. And you also feel a sense of pride once you finish making it. Our chicken is almost all blanched. It's looking really great. Which means that soon I will be adding the rest of the tomato sauce. I will also, after I add the tomato sauce, I'm going to be adding 2 canfuls, so 2 of these, about 1.5 liters of water. Then we're going to bring it to a boil, lower it to medium-low, and cook it for about an hour. And then we're going to have our delicious Marag Geeg for lunch. I don't have any prepared Marag Geeg because I wanted to use all my ingredients for today. So I can't really show you guys what it looks like when finished, but I promise that when I have this for lunch, I'm going to show you guys a beautiful picture. Usually we serve it with rice, and yeah, you can serve it just as its own, but it is really, really good with rice. Alright, our chicken is all blanched. I hope your chicken is all blanched too. So now, let me show you guys what this looks like. Hopefully the steam won't be too bad, but there's all our blanched chicken. It's still a little bit pink, but that's okay. So I'm going to be adding the rest of the tomatoes. So we add them in, give that a nice stir. And we're going to be filling this with water. So I have my water over here. Let's fill about 2 canfuls. Perfect. 1. Oh, I need to get more water. I thought I was going to be prepared. I wasn't that prepared. Some more water. Adding water with the cans also will ensure that you get all of that pesky tomato that's staying in the bottom. Now I have a clean can and I don't even need a spatula to get out all of my tomatoes. So we're going to give that a mix. So now we have a bland looking soup with tomato and water. But what are we going to do to fix it up? We're going to be adding our sauce full of nice, delicious spices. So I'm going to get something to hold this. I'm going to be getting a nice spatula. Nice red spatula. So we have our sauce. with all of this lovely flavor, the onions, the garlic, the spices. We're going to be scooping all of that up and putting it in the tomato chicken water mixture. Hold on, this computer is on my oven mitts. Okay, so let's transfer it. Alright, there we go. Make sure you get as much of the spice mixture as you can, because we don't want to lose all of that beautiful flavor. Okay, there's all of our spice mixture. We're going to give this pot a nice mix. Right now it still looks like just a plain soup, but I know, I'm going to show you guys. There we go. It smells really good. It smells really, really delicious. Those spices just give it such an amazing aroma. So now I've put it on, I've taken off the fan so you guys can probably hear me a little bit better. I've put it on medium-low. I'm sorry, I put it on high. We're going to wait for it to boil, and then we're going to put it on medium-low for about an hour. So, yep, waiting for this to boil. And yeah, I don't know if we want to wait around while I have this boil, but all we have to do now is, as I said, wait for it to boil, then lower it to medium-low, cover it, and let it cook for about an hour. Then you should get a really delicious, flavorful, nutritious chicken soup, and you can eat it with, traditionally we have it with rice, as our Friday night dinner. Next time you have a Friday night dinner, if you choose to make this, don't forget to think of us, and we'll be thinking of you, because we'll be having it for our Friday night dinner. I hope everyone has a great Sunday, and we'll try to make this recipe at home. Let me know if you do, and let me know if you need any hints or ideas on how to make it even more delicious. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you really enjoyed this Cooking with Emma Khazzam, and I'll see you next time. Bye!